So if everyone can take their seat. Got very quiet, thank you. But yeah, we'll start in a minute or two with a little bit of introduction, staff presentation. While I have everyone's attention, a little bit of housekeeping. There are restrooms down this hallway, I believe on the left side of this hallway. They're on the back table or sign-in sheets. You can sign in by paper, or there's a QR code to sign in digitally. We just like to keep a rough number of how many people come. That way we can do better job planning room size for the next. Also, if you like, you can get on the mailing list. The bathrooms were some of my housekeeping items.
We do have a couple more seats up here. Unfortunately, we don't have a microphone. Alexis is very loud sometimes, and I'm going to try and make sure that she stays on point. But if we do have some seats up here, if you want to get a little bit closer to make sure that you can hear really well. But in the meantime, if you do find that you're having a hard time hearing any of us, please just raise your hand. We'll do our best to roam and make sure we're speaking up.
On your tables are, let me borrow one. Okay. On the tables are some maps of the proposed rezoning area, and there should be some markers. This is simply another method of comments. If you have a comment about changing the boundaries of the area to be rezoned, go ahead and mark it up, and then you can leave it on the table, hand it in, leave it on the back table. But this is the purpose of this, and I'll get into it in a minute, is to identify on the map where to rezone. So it's just another method of communicating some of your comments. And there's, like I said, there should be some markers or pens on the table. All right. So. Okay, so let me formally welcome everyone to this public meeting. I thought it moved. It did. Let me formally welcome everyone to this public meeting about rezoning in the Washtenaw area. We are proposing to rezone from whatever is currently there, I'll show you in a minute on a map, to the TC-1 transit zoning district. I'll start off by introducing myself. I am Alexis DeLeo. I am a staff planner in the planning department. Also here tonight is Hank Kelly, pronouns they, them. I have she, her pronouns. Hank Kelly, who is the deputy planning manager, and Brett Leonard, pronouns he, him. In the back, he is the planning manager. And I know we have several council members in attendance. My eyes glaze over when I do public speaking, so you'll have to raise your hand. But Councilmember Dish is here. Also, Councilmember Song. Thank you. Councilmember Watson. Thank you. Councilmember Ghazi Edwin. Okay. And Councilmember Harrison. Thank you. Would anyone like to do more than hello?
Just real quick, I appreciate staff coming out. I just want everybody to know, after the presentation, I have a coffee hour Sunday at 3 p.m. at Sweetwater's on Plymouth and Green, if people want to come and talk more.
I just want to welcome you all. Some of you came to the Plymouth Road community engagement meeting at Traverwood. I think one of the feedbacks that I gave at that session was that there were no snacks, so I brought the snacks this time. I ordered a tray of baklava from, I'm on the board of Jewish Family Services, and the man who made the baklava was resettled here from Syria 5 years ago. So he, among hundreds of refugees who are trying to resettle here, cannot live in Ann Arbor, although all the services are here. So I'm hoping as you enjoy your snacks, you think about the struggles with the housing crisis and who it impacts, even though they might not be able to be here.
I'm going to say a few words. Hi everyone, I'm Aisha Ghazi Edwin, pronouns she, hers. I'm the council member of the 3rd Ward, so this will be partly in my ward. And I'm excited to be here and excited about the prospect of helping to, this will help to build more housing for people who need a lot of people need it. I also will be having an upcoming coffee hour, which I will announce it shortly. But look out for it in early December, and I'd be happy to answer questions that you guys all have for this event or any other thing that you have questions about. So thank you.
All right, so the purpose of tonight's meeting is I will explain and introduce what we're doing, which is a proposed rezoning that is changing the zoning map. I'll review some of the super basic development standards of the TC-1 district so you get a flavor of how the rules are changing. We'll have a formal Q&A in this format to answer questions about the map boundaries, basic development standards, and so forth. A big purpose of the meeting is to hear your comments and feedbacks about the shape of the boundaries. I can answer some questions, but the purpose of this meeting is is the TC-1 district, too strict to, like, the district was created, it's on the books, it's an available district. This would be the 4th area of the city that we're rezoning. A lot of people do have comments, they have strong feelings about the district, but it was approved, it was adopted, and City Council has directed the Planning Commission and staff to put forth a rezoning proposal.
So are you saying it's already been decided?
The boundaries of the map have not been decided. The district exists though. The parameters of the district exist. The category exists. So, this is the proposed, the east side. I split it up into 2 maps to get it as big as possible. This would be the Washtenaw East, my term. The Washtenaw East area, and this is over top of the current zoning districts. We are proposing to rezone the commercially zoned parts of Washtenaw from whatever they are. And whatever they are is currently either planned unit development, C3, which is a fringe commercial, the title is fringe commercial, O for office, or R4B multiple family. Let me emphasize, there is one parcel that is zoned R4B. It's very odd. It's right sandwiched in the middle of office and planned unit development and commercial. But other than that, we are not rezoning residential land. That's not the purpose of the TC-1 district. The TC-1 district is to consolidate the hodgepodge of commercial districts that are already out there and make it into a single zoning district that has some advantages for everyone. If you live nearby, you don't have to guess, well, what is this district? What could be developed here? It's a little more uniform on the zoning map.
Do we ask questions as you go, or do we?
My presentation should just be about maybe even less than 10 minutes. If I get nervous, 8. And so I might answer some questions. So if you would just hold them to the end of the small part. And this is the same area over an aerial photo. So you can see what the buildings are out there. Arborland is in the upper right. I believe they call it Pittsfield Village Shopping Center. It's on the lower side, lower right, I'm blanking on the name, but where Whole Foods is, and the Qdoba on the corner, that's upper left, and the Arbor Hills crossing, where the Lululemon Big Allura is, that is on the lower right. So that's the existing commercial district. That's where we propose to rezone in this area. South and west, a little bit behind Arbor Hills Crossing, is more non-residentially zoned. There's some industrial zoning, some office zoning. We chose not to include that. We've kept our proposed rezoning to more of the commercial core, so that may be a point for feedback and commentary. And then here's the other part that doesn't fit on one map so well, but this is the Washtenaw Stadium proposed area over top of the current zoning. The current zoning, the red ones are either C3, fringe commercial, or C1, which is local commercial, and there's a little bit of C1B, which is community convenience center. I did not come up with this name. There's also a little bit of office here. The office is the purplish. So again, we are taking whatever is commercially zoned and office. We are not proposing to rezone anything that's residential. Here it is over top of the aerial photo. The big, I would call it the Trader Joe's shopping center, but also the lamppost inn. That's basically what's here. Bear Claw Coffee is at the corner. That's included. There's a little bit of commercial office commercial along Washtenaw. So that's that spot on the map. The TC-1 district for permitted uses. It will not be significantly different from whatever's permitted there now. The TC-1 district permits residential, but specifically multifamily homes. The TC-1 district does not permit single-family detached homes. The TC-1 district permits office, general, medical, dental, financial, which is fancy for bank. It permits commercial and services, so general retail, restaurants, bars, personal services, that would be haircuts, laundry, hotels, and entertainment is permitted. And the TC-1 district also permits some R&D. The clean kind, the stuff that you do in an office and you would never know that it might be research and development, it's not the same as manufacturing. But that's what the TC-1 district permits. For a little bit of comparison, the C3 district is our highest and most inclusive commercial district. It permits all kinds of residential, offices, all kinds. It permits all kinds of retail, including auto sales, including truck sales. It permits restaurants and so forth. It permits services and repair, all kinds, including automotive repair, car washes, gas stations. It allows drive-throughs by special exception. Each individual drive-through would be a special exception use proposed and approved by the Planning Commission. And that's the current standard. The C1 commercial district permits all kinds of residential, all kinds of offices, general retail, so not auto sales, more day-to-day goods, restaurants, personal services, but not all services, no auto repair. It permits a hotel. An interesting thing about the C1 district is no individual business can be more than 8,000 square feet. It's for small box, not big box retail. The C1B district, very similar, but it does not have that size restriction. It's generally the same uses without the size restriction as the C1. And the office district allows residential, all kinds, offices, bars and restaurants, personal services, and hotels. It also does drive-throughs by special exception use. I didn't mention drive-throughs in C1 or C1B because they're not permitted. And then for the development standards, so what rules for the size and the shape in the C1 district? I'll explain those and then I'll compare a little bit to what's out there now. There are regular dimensional standards in the C1 district. There is no maximum floor area. Ann Arbor regulates development size by floor area ratio. It's a ratio of how much floor area in the building compared to the lot area. A floor area ratio of 100 is the same size. If your lot is 10,000 square feet, the building can be 10,000 square feet. If your floor area ratio is 400%, and the lot is 10,000 square feet, the building or buildings can add up to 40,000 square feet. So there's no maximum floor area, square footage in the TC1 district, but there are front setback requirements. It's either 0 feet, so right at the property line, or an 18-foot front setback, depending on if you're on a transit corridor or on like a side street. The maximum front setback is either 15 or 20 or 28 feet. And again, depending on if you're right on the transit corridor or if you're on a side street. The minimum height in the TC1 district is 2 stories. The downtown also requires 2 stories. So it's not a brand new concept in the city, but we do have a minimum height requirement of 2 stories for new development in the TC1 district. And the maximum height in the TC1 district starts at 55 feet. And it will increase as you get farther away from residential. This is a concept that's already used in the office district and the research districts. Starts with a minimum height, and if you're far enough away from residential, you can have taller buildings.
How tall?
The TC-1 district has like 3 levels. The office district is unlimited. It's what it says in the, if you are more than 300 feet away from residential, the building height is unlimited.
And that's what it currently is.
Currently. Unlike most other or any other district except for downtown, the TC-1 district has additional development standards. So that building size that you're allowed, some additional standards includes the site can only have 2 curb cuts, 2 driveways. The parking lots must be behind or next to the building. That's a standard in a lot of other places, but there are some exceptions. There are no exceptions in the TC-1 district. The surface area of the parking lot is limited to the size of the building, equal or slightly larger. And that is to make sure that the TC-1 district is emphasizing the buildings and the people and the uses, and it's not a parking lot district. It's a building and an active use district. When your site is large, over 6,200 square feet, which is like an acre and a half, then you can't have just one giant building. You're gonna have to break up your site into smaller blocks. They can be sort of virtual, it doesn't need a real road cutting through, but a pedestrian way, a sidewalk, but break up your buildings into more than one building. And that sole purpose is so people can literally walk around the building to get to whatever is behind. Whether it be a neighborhood behind and you want to get to the shop in front, or whether there's a shop in front and a grocery store in the back. Easier to get to. There's requirements about building frontage. There are requirements about the size of the building, maximum building size and maximum diagonal requirements. Basic, but you gotta regulate to the lowest common denominator, such as buildings must have a functional front entrance facing the street. I have to have a sidewalk leading up to it. And buildings must meet the downtown building design requirements on the first floor. Those requirements are the first floor has to be so tall, and that's to ensure any use could go into it. If you're building a building right now, your office has a different ceiling height as retail. So if you want to future-proof your building, you're going to need a certain minimum height so that any permitted use could go in there no matter what the market changes. The other districts don't have those additional standards, but what they do have are the basic development standards. I mentioned that the TC-1 district technically does not have a floor area ratio per se, but you got to fit into the boxes. The C3 district allows 300% FAR, 3 times whatever the lot area is. It has a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 25-foot setback. So you can see that's in line with the TC-1 district. It requires a 30-foot side or rear setback when you are abutting a residential district. Otherwise, there's no required setback between like properties. And the C3 district has a 55-foot height limit. That's for the entire district, but you'll notice it's the same starting height limit as TC1, so there's no change there. C1 has a 100% floor area ratio, the minimum 10, maximum 25-foot front setback, 30 feet when you are abutting residential, otherwise none for the side or rear. It has a 35-foot height limit, the C1 district does. C1B is a little bit in the middle, 150% floor area ratio, the 10-foot minimum, 25-foot maximum front setback, 30-foot side when you're abutting residential, otherwise none, a 50-foot height limit. And the office district has a 75-foot floor area ratio, which is fairly low for Ann Arbor, 75 feet. It requires a minimum of 15-foot front setback and a maximum of 40 feet front setback. The same 30-foot side or rear setbacks when you're abutting residential. If you're not, there is 0 side setback. It has a 55-foot height limit when you are within 300 feet of residential, and beyond that, it's unlimited. It's getting into the weeds of zoning. You'll have to have a very large parcel to take advantage of this unlimited height limit, because when you can only build so much building size, nobody's going to build a building like a pencil. So you'll need a very large piece to be more than 55 or 85 feet in height. But this is what's written on the books.
Alexis, before you go off this, I think
Yeah.
this might be a holdover from an error I had before. The C3 is actually a 200% FAR district. The C1AR is a 300%. I think that's a holdover of a slide I gave you. So for the audience to be clear, C3 is a 200% FAR, not 300% as the slide.
I do like to include one typo in every presentation. All right,
And again, this is what we currently have, right?
Correct.
so this is
So
what
this
we,
is not the proposed change. This is-
not the change, but if I'll do a little verbal recap. So yeah.
Actually, if you're able to locate one of these sheets, it's a handout, it's a worksheet, but it shows the existing zoning. So if you just want to take a quick look at this slide and then compare it to the different districts that are already underlined, then you can kind of match up what is being described with what's on your tables. And there are a couple extras.
This one we have in yellow, and now I will be.
I live next to a PUD, but I have no knowledge of what that is.
So a PUD is planned unit development. It is a custom zoning district. Every time you see PUD on the zoning map, there is somewhere buried in City Hall a document that says what are the standards for that district. It was too much to pull up every single one of them. In the Washtenaw East, there are two big PUDs, the one with Whole Foods and then the one with Arbor Hills Crossing. For the most part, I feel confident in saying whatever you see built out there, that's basically what is permitted. You don't write a PUD with a huge amount of over. So for I would have to guess at what the floor area ratio is for the Whole Foods PUD. But it's whatever's out there, that's how much you can build. And whatever the current height of that is, that's the height limit of what's there.
Just to make sure that's crystal clear, when you see PUD on our zoning map, no PUDs are the same. So that is a designation that the city has enacted a very specific, tailored set of development regulations. And the reason that they're not here is because we can't generalize them because everyone is different.
So where can I find out what are the specifics of that particular PUD?
I can share them with you.
Yeah.
I can email them to you tomorrow, but because there are so many of them and not sure which one you might be interested in, I don't have them tonight.
Unless I know that, I don't know whether TC-1 or Saxby or not. So I don't know where the specific
Right.
things.
Yeah, we can get that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this concludes my official plan presentation about what the map is and then what the new rules would be. But that was a lot of information and I bet there's a lot of questions. So I'll go back to whatever slide or I'll re-explain whatever, but we can move into like the Q&A part or I'll take a comment too. Anybody want to go first? I saw the back corner first.
Can you explain what's motivating this in the first place? I mean, there was a lot of minutia that doesn't mean very much. What I'd like to know is what's motivating this, question number one, and question number two, what impact does this have on density? Because the traffic is ridiculous already, and I wish our city council would pay attention to the fact that these arteries in and out of our town are totally inadequate for the building that keeps going on. And if this is going to increase the density, I think that I don't understand why that's not being addressed.
So I will address your questions. First, what's motivating it? The sort of sarcastic flip answer is because city council told us to do it. The bigger picture though is city council and the planning commission a few years ago decided that we need a zoning district that better meets our more current expectations for development. We do not want a single-story development set very far back with large parking lots in front. We want our precious land, our limited land, to work harder. Developers are going to have to come in and put two-story buildings or more And they're gonna have to be right-sized and pedestrian scale, and, you know, we don't want giant cinder block boxes with a sea of parking in front. So we created that district. And then City Council said, fantastic, we love this district. Now let's rezone, let's change the rules, let's change the rules. So that's what's motivating it. The second part is, when creating the district, we tried to kind of match the minimums that are already there. We picked the same 55-foot height limit to start. And then we offered a little bit more height, 75 feet, because modern development, you can go to about 75 feet with stick-built construction. So great, maximize the efficiency with just a little bit more. We want the buildings to have a smaller footprint, but a little bit taller to be a little bit more efficient. But you can do 2-story buildings, 3-story, 4-story buildings right now. You can do mixed uses right now. So we didn't want to entirely change. We didn't want to, in terms of increasing density, developers can do it all right now. So just in case they want to do it, we want to change the rules so that they make it the shape we want. But they can build this mass right now. And so this was not to so much encourage more density, but this was to make sure that the density that is coming looks and acts and functions the way we want it.
And to the question about traffic, it's obviously not related, but I just want to be clear, we're not traffic engineers. I'm not a traffic engineer, but this comes up in the context of a lot of development conversations in the city, and I think Washtenaw is a great example. When you look at the traffic burden that is happening on Washtenaw, it is significant. It's hard getting into town, it's hard getting out of town. That happens because we are a job center. That happens because there's demand for people, 80,000 plus every day, to come to the city and go to work. And so we can approach that in a couple of different ways. We could eliminate those jobs. We could go to the University of Michigan and say, could you please stop? That would be one option, right? We try to eliminate some of that draw. That's definitely unlikely from our levers in zoning, but it's also just unlikely. 2, we can start designing those roads so that they can accommodate the kind of volume that you see on US 23 and I-94. We can start converting Washtenaw Avenue so it looks like I-94. That's how you would accommodate more traffic flowing onto that, so you have less traffic jams. That also doesn't seem like a very good outcome for us as a community. These are places that we live, we work, we recreate. So cutting through our community with road networks that are designed and constructed to accommodate that doesn't seem like a great option either. And so part of the TC-1 and part of a lot of conversations happening across land regulation in the city is, how can we get more housing in the city so that more people can be here where that job center is? I want to be honest, I talked to some of you before we started this presentation. If this corridor is realized with a lot more dense housing, I can't promise you that all those people are going to ride their bike to work at the University of Michigan or take the bus. But it is an option for them that is not an option for 80,000 people that are coming on that corridor today. So I just want to frame that. Please take it with a grain of salt. I am not a traffic engineer. It's not unrelated, but I do want to recognize that this is talking about a development typology and regulatory framework that relates to Washtenaw in this case, that relates to a transit corridor that has the highest frequency bus service of any transit route in the city. I would just offer that as a connection to that challenge that we all experience.
I see you guys, I'm gonna go this side of the room, then I'll go back. Yes.
When you were talking about the parking lot being the same size as the building, is that the square footage or the height, or both?
Yeah. It will be the surface area. And so if you're in the TC-1 district, there is a limit on the number of parking spaces that you can have overall, count up the whole site. And there's a surface area limit. If you can't fit all of the spaces you're allowed on the surface area, you'll have to build a parking structure or put them underneath or on top of the building. You'll be third or fourth?
I'm gonna help you too.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got right here in the back in the blue shirt.
Yeah, I was kind of related to that. I was wondering, is there a parking minimum or a parking lot minimum?
There is not a parking minimum anywhere in the city for any district.
I'm concerned about more residential housing at this location because it's right next to the expressway. You know, I was dismayed when you approved housing along the expressway here because it's commonly 85 decibels, all kinds of air pollution, dust and whatnot. Everybody with a diesel truck loves to Jake brake. You know, the more noise, the better. It's 95 decibels. And, you know, I expected a green belt there. Instead, it's out someplace I never go. You know, all of the national green belt we had when we voted for that is gone. It's all been developed. And some of it was very nice. And that was the reason why I voted for it in the first place. But I don't see a green belt.
Yeah. Well, to proximity to highway, not much of these two areas, certainly the Washtenaw Stadium area, it's not near the high, it's not adjacent.
No, right.
Yes.
But this one
And
here
then-
by Arborland should not, no one should live there.
Okay, right. There is a property north in the office, we call it South Pond. That's not part of the rezoning. That's zoned residential now. That's outside of this proposed rezoning. Arborland is included. It's currently zoned C3, and we're seeking to switch it to C1, or
TC-1.
thank you. You can probably guess what I mean, to TC-1. But Ann Arbor is literally surrounded by highways. You cannot, I think I would estimate that 80% of the city is within highway noise. And it's just a thing about Ann Arbor that we have to work with.
Noise barriers won't work when you have a tall structure like that.
That is true, but so the solution then would be to not rezone Arborland TC1, but keep it C3. In that case, then any future development would not have any of the additional standards, which is fine.
Have you considered putting within, say, 500 meters of the highways requirements that they go the extra mile to make them soundproof?
So I can't do that because zoning, the city of Ann Arbor and all communities in Michigan are enabled to regulate the land use and the setback and height standards and so forth. No individual city in the state of Michigan is enabled to change the building code.
We would like to in many regards.
So just raise your hand right now if you want to be added to the queue. I've got two right here. And I've got a mental tally. We're going to get to new voices before we do repeats. So right here in the polka dots.
Thank you. I have two quick questions. One is, and first of all, thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that the maximum height for the TC1 zone, TC1, right, is 3,000 feet? No, 300 feet. 300 feet. How does that translate to stories?
Well, all right. I prepared.
Over your arm, getting in the way there.
Oh, thank you. All right. I prepared for a possible question on this.
We worked this out, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So translated to stories. A rule of thumb, it is not perfect, 10 feet per floor. So 55 feet might be 5 stories plus mechanical things on the top, 5 stories. So 120 feet, ballpark 12 stories. It's not a perfect science, but ballpark. In the TC1 district, so this is and you can find, this is the interactive tool on the website to find out where and what the height is. There's a little inset over there of the Pittsfield Shopping Center.
Really quick, there's a QR code on your worksheets.
Oh, yeah.
It's hidden in each of the maps. There's a little QR code, and that will lead you to this snapshot, the interactive version of the snapshot that Alexis is showing you right now. So if you want to pan around and explore it for yourself, turn buffers on and off, then there's a small QR code bottom of their worksheet. Please continue.
So around the outside of the district, the first 80 feet has a 55-foot height limit. And that's probably the exact same height limit as whatever is out there now. Then, this more blue, then the next piece from 80 feet away to 300 feet away. And see what we did? We matched up that same office district. That piece is 75-foot height limit. There is where. Now you see, it pretty much encompasses the entire south side of Washtenaw. So on the south side, new development, if rezoned, would either be 55 feet or 75 feet, which is not too different. 55 feet is the current limit. And then the next layer is 1,000 feet. You'll need to be 120. The next layer is 1,000. The next layer is 1,000 feet difference. Distance from residential. So in the yellow parts, the height limit is 120 feet. And so you can see pretty much only Arborland, the middle of Arborland, would be able to have a 120-story building. 120 foot building. But you will note, then the only final thing, the TC-1 district does say if you are more than 1,000 feet from residential, you can be 300 feet tall.
Which would be about a 30-story building.
Yeah, but you can't do that here. There is no place on Washtenaw that is more than 1,000 feet from residential. So that's kind of off the table for this spot.
Height bonuses, Alexis, were just,
Oh,
if you
I
could
will
pull
mention
that in
that.
right now.
Yep, I will mention that. Then just here, you can see here in the Washtenaw Stadium chunk, it's 75 or 55 foot height limit here. There's only the tiniest part that can even go to 120. And so again, the 300 foot level off the table. I will say in full disclosure, every single zoning district in the city of Ann Arbor, you can increase the height limit by 30% if you are an official affordable housing project or you are a sustainable all-electric development. So this is for the current levels for height limits and the TC-1 district. It's also for your own property. If you're a property owner, your property gets a 30-foot height bonus if you are an official affordable housing project or an all-electric.
Okay, I've got that right here in the blue, and then a person with the hat, and then burgundy sweater.
So Alexis, if
Yes.
Arborland decided to go crazy and tear down some of their buildings in the ideal location, what's the biggest building they could put there as a building?
The footprint of the building would be 250 feet by 250 feet,
But as a high rise?
and the height would be 120. They could put multiple of them, as long as they have room.
So they could put a 12-story high rise in their property?
Or more. Yes,
Or more?
yes. But keep in mind,
Well, you get the bonus if they are all electric.
well, yes, but keep in mind, I think the estimate is Arborland is currently, at best, is 50% FAR. And they are permitted to have 200% FAR,
I don't know what FAR means.
floor area ratio.
I know, but right now, we all know that commercial real estate is kind of in the doldrums. Briarwood's not doing real well, Arborland's not doing real well. So
Right, but
I know that the housing market in Ann Arbor right now is really hot.
Yeah.
You could make a killing putting a 120-foot plus building there.
Right, all I'm pointing out is, we are seeking to take what Arborland can already do and make sure that each individual building is only 250 feet wide, 250 feet square. There's multiple of them so you can walk around them. Basically, we do not want Arborland to build a mini Briarwood Mall, because you cannot walk around that. You can walk inside with your shoes on in the winter and join the clubs. But so if Arborland wants to take advantage of the development opportunity they already have, we just want to make sure that it's the footprint that we want. And we're going to have to give a trade-off to them. We had to give them a little bit more height because we want smaller building footprints.
But if they decide to go get rid of all the tenants that they have now and level the property, then they can start over, right?
They could do, yes, they can.
They can do that
And they
today.
can do that today.
Okay, we've got a question right here with the hat, and then a person in the burgundy sweater.
Okay.
I see you in the back.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I mean, I don't want to paraphrase for the gentleman that was asking the question that had to do with residential along 23, but I mean, it strikes me that was, I think it's your name, Brett, was sitting up in the front. I was just listening to you talk before the presentation, and I can appreciate the sort of the vision of wanting to be able to have this transit corridor that would enable to sort of like alleviate some of the traffic, you know, congestion that exists because of the fact that people who work in Ann Arbor can't afford to live in Ann Arbor. I guess it's probably like, my issue is, I feel like a track record comes to mind here in terms of like an issue of that residential neighborhood. I think it's nuts that that was permitted to be placed so close to the highway. And if you're talking about history of green belts that were voted on and then never really acknowledged or honored or maintained, you got to get a little cynical when you think about the fact that like it's not the planning, it's the execution of really like having this wonderful idea, but then not being able to bring it to fruition consistent with quote unquote the vision, and whether it would really diminish this traffic congestion that, you know, arguably happens for a couple of, you know, hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the evening. It's not like, I came from New York before I came here, so I know traffic, and it's nothing. It's just, people don't walk enough here as it is, and I'm, as a former New Yorker, I walk all the time, and people look at me like they're crazy, they don't know what to do because they've never seen a pedestrian. So we've got a long way to go in this town to sort of actually promote foot traffic, and I can appreciate the vision behind this. I'm a little cynical and worried about the execution of whether it's going to be done consistent, you know, because for the specific reason that he's mentioned with this residential neighborhood that should never have been approved. You know, and there's a lot of buildings that that aren't even being used, right? There's a Denny's that's just sitting dilapidated.
I don't have none of us have a super great answer. It's a super valid concern and comment. The only response I sort of can give is the city, we are not developers, but we do make the land use rules. And we're trying by having the minimums, the minimum 2 stories, the requirements for the maximum size of the buildings, so that we can do as much as we can, and maybe we can do more, but right now, we try to raise the bar so that no matter what developer comes in, it'll be more of the style that we're looking for. But it is, I mean, I can have a 2-story minimum. I think that a lot of people would love mid-rise development all over. I'm not requiring that, so I have to be comfortable with the minimum. But we are raising the minimum.
So the planning part of it is great. It's just what's the part who's not at this meeting that we need to be voicing our concerns to.
Right.
There's been a couple of comments about the greenbelt. I want to, you know, I would encourage you through the city's Parks and Recreation website. There's a dedicated greenbelt page. That program has protected an incredible quantity of land throughout Washtenaw County. I can't speak for anybody who voted for that and was envisioning that you were envisioning that it was going to protect a piece of land. But I just want to put that out there. If you're interested in learning more about that program, definitely check out that resource. That program has leveraged an incredible amount of resources outside of that millage to have a really significant impact on natural features, agricultural land throughout Washtenaw. So I've just heard a couple questions about that, and I would encourage you to check out that resource. There's a lot of great information about what that has accomplished, what it's not accomplished, but it's a great snapshot of where that program is. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm looking at the time. I'll take a straw poll. We've got about 20 minutes left. I had wanted to offer an opportunity to go back to the open house to be, if you have questions that you don't want to be so public, or we can keep going. What is the mood of the room?
Keep going.
We will keep going in this. Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to do a quick recap of the queue because, as Alex said, we do have a lot of questions but limited time. So right here, I have 1 in the back, I have 2 up front, and then purple shirt and green shirt right here, and then
okay. Next.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. I wanted to go to the East Stadium part of this, if you don't mind. I got a question about this.
Stay here?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Back in August 2022, Planning Commission approved a new project in the site of the university by BESTAC.
Okay.
that was approved at the current zoning limits of 4 stories and 55 feet high. At that point, TC-1 was not on an East Stadium. It was only intended for Washtenaw. So part of my first question is, when did East Stadium get added to this? Because no one was aware, the public wasn't made aware that it was being added to it.
Yeah, I can take that. So when the district was created, there was a lot of legislative policymaking identifying the need for a new district to try to build some capacity and development potential along our transit corridors. When that district, in response to that direction, the Planning Commission offered the TC-1 zoning district, which was then enacted. It's now added to the other zoning districts in the city, so it's now on the books, so to speak. At the time, the Planning Commission suggested that there might be 4 corridors that are appropriate to look at. State and Eisenhower area, West Stadium, Washtenaw, and Plymouth. 2 of those were done. The City Council then said, Brett, pick up the pace on Washtenaw and Plymouth. And so that's what we're doing now. And in that exercise, we had a preliminary conversation with our Planning Commission. We said, you have this direction. We talked about Washtenaw. That policy direction didn't specify a list of properties, so we started brainstorming what that looked like. We provided a couple of scenarios, and so the Planning Commission saw this node as appropriate to consider. So that's how it got added into this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that was a recent addition by the Planning Commission. What's unusual, I just want to point out, is that the features of that zone don't meet really the guidelines as outlined for the TC-1. The buildings are built to the sidewalk. The parking lots are to the rear. It is walkable. It looks entirely different from every other TC-1 area, from West Stadium, from Plymouth, from the Washtenaw area, and from State and Eisenhower. Now, what's interesting is that the developers of the Washtenaw project, when I contacted them several weeks ago, said the project is on hold because they couldn't make the financials work. But if it was approved to TC-1, they would go and submit a new site plan, which would, in principle, bring their building from 55 feet high up to 72 feet high, from 4 stories to 6 to 7 stories, on a remarkably congested intersection. Albeit most of the traffic stays on Washtenaw, feeding into the university and Central City workplaces coming in from Washtenaw. So Stadium is an adjunct to this. So I just have a serious question about that. I also have a serious question as to how the Washtenaw project because when they were doing a public presentation, they pie in the sky said, oh, the TC-1 maybe down the road we might change things. But I think it's an amazing coincidence that Washtenaw put their project on hold and is going to submit a new site plan once the Planning Commission decided to extend this to the west. There's got to be an explanation, so I'd love to hear it.
I would say that, number one, it's a fantastic comment. It sounds like you do not, that you think that because the purpose of this meeting is to introduce what we are proposing, and we are not actually submitted the petition to rezone. So it sounds like your opinion is this should not be included.
Oh, it should, I think it's just totally different from all the other places under consideration.
And thank you for that. And then in terms of Bedford, I will tell you, people call the planning department developers. And they get really excited about TC-1 because they see the unlimited floor area ratio. And then I say, great. And your maximum building size is 250 feet square. And you can only have 2 curb cuts, and it has to be at least 2 stories. And then they say, oh, let me go back to talk to my designers. So they might have to go back and revisit. I can't speak for them. We also hear from a lot of projects that say, I can't get financing for this, it's a tough lending market. So I have no other.
But on that project, when that came the first time, we suggested they look at TC-1. TC-1 was a district that was established at that time. And for some of those reasons, they found some difficulty in some of the design standards that were applied to it. I don't have all the details, but I think it's also highly parked. I think that there were more parking than would comply with the TC-1. So if that were to be redeveloped under TC-1, it'd be interesting to see how it came out because their parking ratio, if I recall, was pretty high. That was actually sort of something we were pushing them on, and not outside the TC-1, we don't have that maximum to force it. But I can tell you, I am not having conversations with them saying, please rezone this to TC-1, but I want to be honest, when that came through the first time, TC-1 was in existence, we encouraged them to look at this district. They chose not to at the time. Maybe if they would have listened to my wisdom, they'd have a financeable project.
But could a developer request a
Yes.
TC-1 zoning?
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
So, okay, so
A
let's.
property owner can request a
A
rezone.
property owner can request it, that's important.
I'm going to move on to the next commenter, right back here in the black jacket.
Yes, even though Mr. Leo framed the discussion along the lines of this is about what boundaries this group wants to react to with the TC-1. TC-1 has not been approved by Planning Commission or Council as it pertains to this district. It was...
No, these are proposed only.
Correct. It has been approved to other transit corridors in the city, so it has not been approved for Washtenaw Avenue. And
That's why we're here to get feedback.
yes, and you'll get it. I think many of us, I'm sorry, what, Brett?
Don't take too long so we can hear from some other folks too.
Well, all of us have waited a while to say our piece. We do not support TC-1's application to East Washtenaw. I know that Ms. DeLeo, in going through the categories of zoning, her argument was, in many respects, this is not much different from what exists. Folks, it is different. Taller buildings, less setback, less parking requirement, more traffic, more congestion on Washtenaw, which is already not tolerable. Yesterday, about 12:30, I emerged from Chalmers and Wood Creek onto Washtenaw, westbound Washtenaw, 12:30 p.m. on a weekday, backed up solid. This isn't 4 p.m., this isn't 8 a.m., okay. Washtenaw Avenue is fine at 11 p.m. Washtenaw Avenue is a joy at 6 a.m. or 6:30. The rest of the time, no. This proposal is a triumph of the ideology of development and the ideology of more revenue for the city. A triumph of that ideology over the reality of those of us who live here and have to deal with the conditions day to day. We know that a number of elected officials talk about the glory of more affordable housing. Don't fool yourself, folks. Any residential construction that's going to be along here is going to have the same high Ann Arbor rents as everyone else. So, going back to the gentleman in the blue sweater who started off by saying, well, what's the motive of this? The motive of this is more development. The motive of this is more property revenue for the city, which is laudatory. But also, the motive of this is, look, as we learned long, long ago in Watergate, 50 years ago, follow the money. The mayor has just established a political action committee. Read the reports of who has contributed.
I'd like to get a word in if you don't mind. Not your time.
Not enough. Okay, I'll close by passing on a couple of comments from another member who told me that member was so angry she did not feel like speaking. Her comments on this will be quick. 1, traffic burden. Okay, we already did that. 2, for those people who live in Wood Creek or on Chalmers, the great difficulty of getting onto Washtenaw at many hours of the day. And 3, her final comment was light pollution, noise pollution, and air quality, and that's what she said, and that's her speaking, not me. And I'm sorry I've offended you, sir, by running over.
Thank you, Michael.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
Talking about if anybody wasn't able to be here, please, planning@a2gov.org is an easy email to address. If you have additional comments or if people who aren't able to attend, you can always send us feedback there.
Yes, I have green hat, then in the very front, and then purple shirt.
I'd like to talk about, again, the traffic on Washtenaw Avenue. And a while back, there was a proposal of reimagine Washtenaw. You know, that Washtenaw Avenue is that is a state highway, correct? And so, are there any plans, really two questions, in this development, does traffic come into the conversation? Because it is horrendous now. I live on Glenwood Road. Traffic on my residential road has increased 10 times since they put the light in at Washtenaw Ave. And, that's, mostly people that are eventually cutting through to Geddes. I only see this as an increase in that. But also, is there any thought of how we could alleviate that traffic? Road design and,
So in the planning department and the Unified Development Code regulates the private land use. Our public services department plans, operates, designs within the right of way. And we have a transportation plan. We work together, sort of side by side, there is some overlap, but there's existing zoning there now that allows more than what is literally out there. This TC-1 district does allow more, but it is not complete apples to oranges. So we didn't, we reduced the amount of parking that was permitted, reduced the number of curb cuts onto streets. But beyond that, I can't regulate driving behavior with the zoning ordinance. So it just goes side by side.
We do have reimagine Washtenaw right here.
Yeah.
Well, when you speak, because where is that right now? And what is it and where is it?
Well, just before you get to that, Nathan, so I'm memorializing your comment that this needs to be integrated into transportation planning, so I just want to acknowledge that. But part of this is with the traffic on Washtenaw. Washtenaw is actually the most viable transit route for somebody to live without a car in this community, probably apart from being downtown. And the reason for it has the most frequent bus service. And we have a great bus system that responds to demand. And so the opportunity to add more growth and development to Washtenaw and that bus line actually is a better chance of somebody being able to use that as their primary transportation means than a lot of other geographies in the city. Quick on Reimagine.
Real quick, I'm Nathan Vogt, I work for Washtenaw County, so I'm the project manager for Reimagine Washtenaw. Ann Arbor is one of our 4 municipal partners. I work with Pittsfield Township, Ypsi Township, City of Ypsi, and think of Reimagine Washtenaw as kind of a broad, coordinated collaboration among all the partners and the ride, and really transforming slowly with planning and small implementable steps like this zoning district to make the corridor, more livable, continue to move traffic, but balancing more multimodal needs, adding bike lanes, making sure there's complete sidewalks, getting the zoning in place that will support more livable and car-free environments where, as Brett was saying, get on transit, it's out your front door, get downtown. We work with the ride. The ride's a great partner. They're recognizing that they need to have more frequent service, and as you've seen them live, next year they're going to be implementing a lot of more frequent service, express service, and potentially BRT elements, bus rapid transit elements, which will work in conjunction with the traffic signals and other elements to get people downtown faster, both ways faster. So I'm sort of coordinating a high level, and I work with Ann Arbor and other partners, and it's a slow, long process. I can tell you right now, MDOT is doing a planning and environmental linkages study, which is like an environmental study, and we're revisiting all of the elements from our 2014 plan, which Ann Arbor adopted and all the units adopted and the county adopted. And you're gonna see more to the public, more feedback that we're looking for to look at preferred alternatives, where we put the bike lanes, how do we fit in sidewalks, all these really tough questions and how to keep moving traffic. And I can tell you, we're not gonna road diet the thing. MDOT knows we need to move the traffic, but there has to be a balance between livability, placemaking, multimodal, and traffic. So, thanks for letting me say a few words.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. My only concern is that there hasn't been much, as far as I'm aware, much development done in the areas that have already been converted to TC-1. So how do we know that this is actually going to make a difference and that developers can actually build?
I will say this, when any spot has tenants, it's profitable for the landowner, it's full, there's no vacancies, when it's viable, a lot of customers, and it's a hot spot, there's not any development pressure, redevelopment pressure. But we want these rules in place for when those landowners and developers decide now is the time. So it's true, we are not seeing, nobody is immediately jumping on redevelopment in the State and Eisenhower area or the Washtenaw area. Those are pretty, especially Washtenaw, I didn't mean that.
Stadium.
Especially Stadium. Thank you for the help. It's a pretty robust, it's pretty active, it's pretty vibrant right now. And so this is a good time to put the rules in place. And we won't see a ton of change until there's some outside trigger, somebody says, okay, now is the time. It's hard work to redevelop, so we have to.
We might find that we have to make some adjustments. We make adjustments to all sorts of zoning districts that have been on our books for decades. So we might learn the same with this.
Hank, I feel like we have time for one or two more questions.
So, Hank told me I'm next.
Okay.
So, I do better with an actual example. So I'm thinking the dollar store. And I'm thinking the dollar store, according to the C1 that you were talking about earlier, could go in and build multi-stories, another 4 stories on top of it, and make that all housing, the way it is currently zoned. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if it gets this new zoning and they want to do something like that, my understanding is the actual building structure will now have to be significantly closer to Washtenaw, and what will be actually between the neighborhood and the taller building will be parking. Because you said the parking is on the back side.
If they choose parking, so yes, or I don't want to cut you off.
Okay, so I want to be sure I understood that correctly. And so so that's one of the things that you're really doing is if people decide to go ahead and do the residential taller buildings, you're forcing them to put that closer to Washtenaw, which will give us more of a buffer.
Yes, there could be two scenarios, well, there's a million. There could be 2 scenarios to redevelop that strip mall now. They could put, maybe there's 3. They can put more height right on top of that building. And they can do that today.
Right.
They could also, with the TC-1 district, they'll have to, if they want a brand new building, that building will have to go in the front, right along Washtenaw. They can keep the building behind as well, if they want. So they could either scrape it clean and then build the buildings, probably 2, maybe 3 of them, or at least broken up so that the people on Parkwood can get there easier. But 2 or 3 buildings broken up right along Washtenaw. The other option, though, is to keep what's there and put the new buildings in front. If they scrape it clean and put the buildings close to Washtenaw, it's hard to say what they would do with the parking lot. They could have about the same, they could have parking behind. They could have parking behind, but much less. They could put parking underneath the building. It would mostly be a mirror image of what is there now.
Got it. Okay, and then I just have to say, having been a realtor for over 30 decades, or 3 decades. It is a late night. The other thing I just want to say is any housing, even if it is for the crazy rich yuppies working downtown, but if they fill up this space, that may free up something else that's more affordable. And they're already coming into town driving the road. It's just, if they're right here in town, I hope that they get out on a bike or a bus or something.
Oh, they're gonna die from air pollution.
Not if everyone rode the bike, but okay, you clarified my question though, thank you.
I'll add you to the queue. I have right here in the green shirt, then I have the puffy black jacket, and then your.
And then maybe?
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
All right, well, let's get through these questions and have this be the last question here.
Okay.
So we're going to go through the queue we have. If you have any follow-up questions, please email us at planning@82gov.org. We need to be respectful of the space here to clean up and get out of here. So let's run through that, and then.
Yeah, so that's 5 more questions, and we are at time, so please be as brief as you can.
Could you please tell us, because we live in this area and many of us use what is there now. You didn't talk about what are the things that are not allowed in TC-1 that we use now that are there and may be gone.
Gas stations and single-family detached homes. I don't think there are any single-family detached homes in the district now, but gas stations and auto sales, but that went away, and Arbor Land went away. Gas stations are the thing that's there now that's not permitted in TC-1.
What about auto repair,
Auto
food?
Not permitted.
Not so.
Those are permitted in special exception.
They are permitted with a special exception use.
Yeah.
So they're
Just-
new ones are permitted new ones would be permitted on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. So, no gas stations. Auto repair is permitted, but it requires a special permission.
Okay, yes, right here.
I'm always curious about this, that we have TC-1, which was developed for Oxford out on the Briarwood area, and we don't have TC-2, TC-3, or for us, TC-4. It's just one cookie mold, one cookie cutter approach. I have so many problems with some of these things. First of all, new buildings have to be in the front. Well, I don't understand why. We've had this situation with our house, the furniture store. That when they built that, they had all kinds of crazy requirements put on them by the planning department. One of which was they had to have, and you've got it here, a functional street entrance. Now, all of the traffic for the furniture store comes from the parking lot. No one walks in to buy a couch from the street. They come in from the parking lot. But those people now have to have 2 entrances, and they have to guard that entrance sometimes. At night, they have to have an extra employee to guard that entrance, which nobody is using, but burglars could. I don't understand these short, small setbacks from the street. If people can get to these areas, they can walk a few more feet. They don't, I mean, we're not having people walking 15 minutes down sidewalks and then, oh my God, I've got to go to the back and enter the building. To say that they have to be right up to the street is an imposition. And the idea that everything has to be at least 2 stories tall. Kroger wants to expand. They want to expand their footprint. Oh no, if you're going to do that, you have to add a second story. So what's the second story for? For Mr. and Mrs. Kroger to live there? It's an arbitrary, crazy requirement that you're putting on these things. And I think the other thing that bothers me is I look at this map. This is my shopping area, but not my backyard. I see houses all along the very top rim of the purple and more over here north of Arbor Lane. What kind of shadows are these high-rise buildings going to make in their neighborhoods? Can they still grow vegetables? Can they still grow grass? It's just not clear. Maybe it's all fine, but this map is not adequate to tell what's really happening.
Thank you.
Right, so right here and then yellow part.
I am one of those that live at the border with the new TC-1 corridor, so I have significant concerns, especially because our property resides in an O zone, office zone, even though it's residential.
Well.
And I have no idea what the PUD stands for, what they're allowed to do or not do under the current state versus the new proposed states, so I leave here with no knowledge. And also, this is causing a lot of traffic flow. We are all here, we have the same experience. We have to go to Washtenaw Ave to go somewhere. So my recommendation to you, to the City Council, to the Planning Commission, Public Services, to the Transportation Planning to sit together and do a very thorough assessment and analysis of how to actually reimagine Washtenaw. Because if you don't live there, you cannot reimagine it for the better of the community. We have all been there around this TC-1 corridor for years. So we've lived there, we know it, and now you're trying to impose something brand new on us and ask us that, by faith, think that this is what's gonna cause this reimagining of Washington. You have to do better at this if you want those of us that are going to be affected by this change to embrace it, okay? The planning will just cause more density. You can't paint it any other way. It's going to be more density. People use cars. People drive cars. We are not a culture of walkers or of bike riding. The new bicycle lane on the Platte is causing the most horrendous traffic on Platte going towards Packard. This is, the line sometimes goes from Packard, because it's one lane now, it used to be 2 lanes, all the way from Packard to the Platte Huron Parkway intersection. One car after the other. So it caused a lot of problem, more pollution for all the housing there. And there are hardly any bicycles. I go every day to Healthy Farm to walk. I have not seen one biker on the new bike lane, okay? So you have to do better. You have to sit down together, all of these, transportation planning commission, city council, public services, and plan together and really do something that's gonna work for those of us that are already living here for years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Aren't you biking?
What consideration is the city giving to livability for the number of grocery stores? I live in this area. We lost a Kroger's on Packard, very convenient. We lost a Kroger's and a Lucky's on East Stadium. We lost a Food and Drug Mart on the corner of Stadium and Packard. We lost a Big Ten. Now, I have to drive all over Creation to get groceries now. Are you going to mandate that there be a grocery store in this new TC-1 zoning? Or are you going to allow the developers to eliminate Trader Joe's, Kroger, Whole Foods? Is that feasible?
So zoning doesn't mandate, it allows. We don't prescribe what you can do in your house or what you can do in that space. But we say these are the rules as to how you can do it. it's not, I just want to echo, we hear that a lot, grocery stores. We hear it a lot. And one of the reasons that grocery stores go away is because they make business decisions. I think part of that is a really changing market. A lot more people are buying stuff from Amazon, they're buying stuff from delivery, even food. But more people actually supports existing businesses, they get more customers, and it increases the chances that a new business is going to find a market. When you are, I talk a little bit about transportation, I'm going to talk a little bit about marketing, I'm also not an expert, but one of the things I know about planners, they look at rooftops, and they look at how many people live within a radius of the space. And that is one of, I'm sure, many factors that a grocery store decides whether or not to open or close a door. So, but the short of it is no, we don't prescribe that this has to be a restaurant, this has to be a grocery store, this has to be a dry cleaner. We set the framework to say these are the uses that are permissible, these are the ones that are not. And grocery stores are allowed. In both the current zone and the
probably lose more.
Okay, the last question was right here with the rainbow shirt.
So I've been thinking about what question to ask, and I think I'd rather talk to my neighbors. So I'm Jess Leetaw. I live in Pittsfield Village. I first lived here 10 years ago. I moved away because my landlord sold my place, and then moved back again this year, and hopefully I'm here forever. I want to say to the room that I'm on Parkwood as well, so I'm adjacent to the district. I'm mindful of our A20 commitments, our carbon neutrality commitments, that we're supposed to be decreasing our vehicle miles traveled. We're supposed to be getting out of our cars by 50% within the next 6.5 years. I'm also mindful of whichever nerd printed out this report, I appreciate it. Thank you. But we have housing affordability goals, and we're falling further behind every year. And to the point earlier about how these houses are not going to be affordable, absolutely not. In no circumstance is a new house going to be more affordable than what's there. But what it allows, in many cases, is for existing housing to become what's called naturally occurring affordable housing. So not subsidized, not publicly owned, but more affordable. So I just wanted to say, I'm not trying to talk you into it, but I am fervently in support, and I welcome conversations with any of my neighbors or anybody in this room. If you'd like to talk more, maybe you can try to change my mind, and I'll try to change yours. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
So we actually have someone young who walked out, and I asked to come back. So is that okay? Yeah, I mean, look, my own 17 to 18-year-old is not here, so you're a little bit older, but it'd be great if you could hear from me.
Hey folks, I'm sorry to, I'm not gonna hold you if you want to start moving out of school, but I got a job here in Ann Arbor about 10 months ago, and I was living in Lansing, and I was the horrible, dreadful traffic that's driving in every day and is on Washtenaw. And when you're in traffic, you always think that traffic's really bad, and it's hard to remember that you are traffic. And then I moved here after 2 weeks of like basically 12-hour days with the commute, and I have been riding my bike to work every day since then. I go get my groceries on my bike. I took my bike here. I'm going to be limping it back because the rear wheel just broke. But, but what I'm trying to say is that if housing is close to like where people are going, even if they did take their car, at least their car would only be present on the corridor for 500 feet or so. But it wouldn't even really make sense at a certain scale. It's faster to walk. It's faster to bike. And it's not just biking, it's multimodal transit, it's buses, and maybe one day we can dream of trams. But I think that discouraging building new housing is only going to worsen the issues that we're having. I mean, I know MDOT is talking about widening 23, and like the traffic is not from within Ann Arbor. The traffic is coming from Saline, it's coming from Dexter, it's coming from Ypsilanti, it's coming from South Line, all the areas around it that are more affordable, and where I would have gone if my job hadn't paid me just enough that I was able to qualify for my apartment next to my work. So I'm fortunate, but a lot of people I know are not, and they have to make that commute. And it's not something people want to do. No one wants to spend an hour of their day, every day, in their car. So, thank you all for coming.
Planning@hgo.org if you didn't get your thoughts shared.
And leave us your worksheet if you made comments for us to consider on your worksheet.
Like, what do you plan on doing, like,